Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here. So the shooting in Minneapolis on Sunday, police shooting shot a 20-year-old black man. As expected, activists and the media globbed on, and riots and looting last night. Surely more to come. And of course, the entire time, everyone's been missing the true story. And that's what I want to do here. I want to issue a warning first before we get started. We're going to play some graphic footage here of police officers getting shot and killed. So if there's any kids watching or you don't want to see that, join us back in a few more minutes. I want to do this. I think it's very important to do this, though, to prove the point that in an instant, someone can pull a gun and kill a police officer. No one thinks about that reality. And because no one talks about it, it's skewing our reaction and our interpretation when events happen, like what happened in Minnesota on Sunday. So just to make sure we're all caught up, Sunday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, police pull over a car. There's a 20-year-old black man inside. Police find out that he has a warrant out for his arrest. So they get him out of the car. They start handcuffing him. He tries to get away. So let's play the body cam footage here. The female officer at the end, if you notice, it's pretty clear she thinks she has a taser in her hand. She thinks she's tasing him, but it's actually a real gun. Here's the video. But she says, taser, taser, taser. She thought it was a taser, and it was a gun. Like, hopefully we get to the bottom of that. I was talking to a police officer the other day. He says, your gun is going to be on your dominant hand, and your taser is going to be on the other side of your hip, completely, usually. So how did that happen? We have no idea. Hopefully we find that out. But riots ensue after that. He drove off and crashed into a car and died. So that's what happened on Sunday, right? And immediately, right, we all see the same video. We all saw the same video. And everyone went to their battle lines immediately. Everyone went to their previously drawn battle lines and made the same old talking points as always. I saw a CBS Sunday morning video or CBS morning news video of the shooting, and they did a whole package. And then afterwards, the 3 anchors are all sitting around and they're like, wow, what's wrong with America? What's wrong with our police? How could they have done this? Why are we so racist? All that stuff, same stuff. Not a second. Not 1 second of one of those anchors on the stage saying, geez, this is terrible, but imagine being a police officer for 1 second and not knowing who you're approaching in this car. And if you're a police officer and you're approaching this car and this guy has a warrant out for his arrest, you know how badly he does not want to go to jail. So what's a police officer supposed to do in that scenario? Like, no one asking those questions, which is why I'm glad you're here, so we can ask these questions. And that's my main point. No one wants to go to jail. People will go to great lengths to avoid going to jail. They will go to lengths up to and including taking a gun and shooting a police officer point blank range in order to avoid going to jail. That's how desperate people are. That's how badly people don't want to go to jail. And desperate people do stupid things. Talked to a police officer on my radio show yesterday. He said, there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. No such thing as a routine traffic stop because you don't know what's happening. You don't exactly know what's going on. You don't know the mind frame of the person in the car. Another police officer told me a story. He was a former cop. 2 police officer friends of his, they stopped and they helped a stranded motorist. Stranded motorist, side of the road, let's pull over, let's help the guy out. What they did not know was that guy just committed an armed robbery. So the guy started shooting at the police officers. They survived. The guy drove away. Now, he got away. Like, he's out there. So next time that guy gets pulled over for speeding, the officer who pulls him over doesn't know the history, doesn't know the story, doesn't know the guy's mindset. But that guy, is going to be thinking, this is it. They're coming for me. They're coming to get me. They know it's me. That guy's going to be desperate. An officer has no idea who's in that car and has no idea what that person's state of mind is. Dante Wright, the 20-year-old, did not want to go to jail. There was a warrant out for his arrest, of all things, for illegally carrying a gun. Right? I thought the left wanted to enforce common sense gun laws. I guess not always, right? He didn't want to go to jail, so he tried to escape. What's an officer to do? What's an officer to do? I mean that genuinely. What are we as a society to do? Just let people who really, 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 really don't want to go to jail run away? What does the cop do? Hey, bud, you're coming to jail because you broke the law. I don't want to. You have to go to jail. No, officer, I really don't want to. Oh, okay, fine. Let me know when it'll be more convenient for you to go to jail then, sir. Like what I don't know what the scenario is supposed to look like. So here's what I want to do in this segment. I want to give people a taste. And like, you can't really know unless you're in there, right? Unless it's really life and death for you. But just a taste of how fast it happens from an officer's perspective. Okay? You're an officer, you pull someone over, things are going fine, and then all of a sudden, split second, you get shot. It happens that fast. Or there's an altercation, and in the midst of the altercation, a guy grabs a gun and shoots you. It's fast. So what's an officer to do? We empower them. We law-abiding people empower them to enforce the law. People don't comply, they fight back, and they shoot cops to avoid going to jail. So what's a police officer supposed to do? So I have a couple examples here. I got four examples. We'll start in Pennsylvania. This guy was tased already. Right? We have all the dashboard and webcam or body cam footage of this, but we shortened it a little bit just to make this one point about how fast things happen. So this guy was pulled over. He's been tased, right? So for all the people who are like, well, why don't you just tase him? Well, that doesn't always end the situation, right? So he was tased, and then this is what happened next.
Can I pat you down? Can you put your hands on the hood here? Thank you. Relax. I don't like doing this any more than you do, okay? Place your hands behind your back. What? Hey, place your hands. Stop resisting! I got him. Keep the taser on. Stop resisting! Keep the taser on. Get on your back! Get on your back! On your back! All right. Get on your back! My God! My God! Look, do this! All right, be my ass. Get the f*** on your back!
How fast. So what's a police officer supposed to say? Oh, wow, you really don't want to go to jail. Okay, go ahead as you were. This one's in Oklahoma. 10 minutes of this guy not getting out of the car. 10 minutes. He was tased. He's pepper sprayed. They warned him 7 times before they tased him. They finally tased him. They pepper sprayed him. They still can't get him out of the car. He yelled, literally, I don't want to go to jail. He screamed that out loud. I don't want to go to jail. And you can barely see him reach under his seat and grab his gun. Here it is.
Get out of the car! Get out!
additional units.
You got him. What the? What? Ah! Ah!
Just 10 minutes before that, reaches back, grabs the gun, shoots the 2 officers right there. This is New Mexico. Officer stopped someone on a motorcycle. And this is a good example of, again, how fast this happens.
Give me your other hand. Give me your other hand.
Oh, shit, it burns. It burns.
Have unit step it up. He's wanting the 32.
Last one. This happened just February 4th, just 2 months ago. Traffic stop in New Mexico. This is 3 minutes into what was a very calm traffic stop, right? 3 minutes of, normal, very calm, no reason to be alarmed here. Sorry, we started that one a little too late. So the police officers on the passenger side, and it's just like, hey man, you step out of the car. The guy gets out of the car, walks out with a gun, goes over the back of the truck, boom, 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 kills him. Okay, that was 2 months ago. Have you ever seen that story? I want to play a video here. This is an anti-police activist in Phoenix. All right, so this guy marched, protesting against police, the whole thing. And good on him, he decided to go through some police training with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. So he went through some police training, and here's a couple things that he learned.
Scenario 1 is a call about a man casing cars in a parking lot. Maupin approaches the man and starts asking questions.
What? We have your hand in your gun.
You're looking for your vehicle. What kind of car do you drive?
We have your hand in your gun.
What kind of car do you drive?
This is my car, man.
Oh.
Maupin, the officer, is shot. It happens that fast.
I didn't understand how important compliance was, but after going through this, yeah, my attitude has changed. This is all unfolding in 10 to 15 seconds. People need to comply with the orders of law enforcement officers for their own sake.
You have to watch the full video of that. I'm going to put it on MikeSlater.locals.com, and you can watch the full report, because he does like 5 different scenarios just like that, and he gets shot in a second. And then that's when he learns at the end, like, oh, yeah, you need to comply with what the officers say. If you don't, things will spiral very quickly. This is why yesterday, this story also went viral. It actually happened back in December, but the video just went viral, and the police officer was just fired for this. You've seen this perhaps. This is an Army lieutenant. The media keeps calling him the Afro-Latino Army lieutenant who was pulled over. This is in Virginia. And he was pulled over, and he drove a mile. He says he thought it was not a safe space to pull over. So he didn't pull over for a mile. I talked to a police officer yesterday. He said, the police will only pull you over where they think it's safe. So if you see the lights, you pull over. If you drive a mile, the officer's alarms are going to be going off. His alert is going up. Are you trying to ditch something? Are you trying to escape? Are you trying to get somewhere where you can run? What's going on here exactly? So he finally gets to that lit gas station right there. And he won't get out of the car. The officer said, get out of the car. He won't get out of the car. I want to play this one clip at the very beginning of the dashboard footage. Actually, this is a body cam. Notice the very first thing that the police officer says. This is the first thing. He just pulls over. The cops get out of the car. The very first thing the police officer says. Here it is.
How many occupants are in the vehicle?
What's going on?
How many occupants are in your vehicle?
It's only myself. Why are your weapons drawn? What's going on?
Open the door slowly and step out. Open the door.
I'm not getting out the vehicle. What's going on?
So again, we look at it from the perspective of, oh, it was just one guy in the car. The cops didn't know. They didn't even know how many people were in the car because the windows were tinted. They didn't even know how many people were in the car. So what were they facing? Imagine you're a police officer. You pull up, the guy's like evading you. He drove a mile. Like, what's going on exactly? I don't even know how many people are in the SUV. Are there 3 people in there? They got guns? I don't know. What's happening? They don't know. They needed the guy to comply. He refused to get out. He was pepper sprayed. He finally got out. They checked the car and then they let him go. Listen, I don't want people to get killed. I don't want people to get killed. And again, I'm the racist for not wanting things to escalate, for not wanting people to get killed. Comply with the officers. Why am I a racist for this? Chris Rock, he did a bit back in the 90s. Rules on how to not get your blank kicked by police. Obey the law. This is Chris Rock. Obey the law, use common sense, stop immediately, turn that blank off, referring to blank the police, rap music, be polite, and shut the blank up. That was Chris Rock's advice on how to not get your blank kicked by police. Is anyone going to talk about that today? I want to come back and talk about what makes the news. What makes national news? Who decides and what makes it and what doesn't? It's important. Talk about that next. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. I'm going to put on our locals page, MikeSlater.locals.com, that video of the activist going through the police training. It's an amazing video, and I wish more people would do that. Also, you can watch us live on Facebook right now and leave your comments, and we check them out throughout the show. I appreciate everyone doing that. I want to talk about what makes national news. What makes national news, and then, of course, what doesn't. It's very important to understand. So Dante Wright, again, the 20-year-old black man who was killed by a police officer in Minnesota on Sunday, the cause of all the riots happening right now. That makes national news. That fits the narrative. The activists get more attention. They get more clout, more money, so that the co-founder of Black Lives Matter can go buy her 5th house after number 4 in Malibu. What doesn't make the news, right? So that fits a narrative. What doesn't make the news? Well, there was an officer on Long Island. This happened 3 days ago. Officer in Long Island pulled over a car for not having its headlights on. Driver sped away, crashed into another car, ran away on foot. They ran after him. They got in a scuffle, and one of the officers was stabbed in the leg, ruptured an artery, and he was bleeding to death on the side of the road. And a retired Marine happened to live there. He lived nearby and saw it happen and went and saved the officer's life, we think. He's in a medically induced coma right now. That happened Saturday. You heard about that? No media coverage. Why not? No narrative. A 12-year-old was shot in the chest walking down the street in New York City. 12 years old. That was 3 days ago. No national outrage about that. Why not? No narrative. No narrative, no money. No 5th house for the Black Lives Matter founder. If I may, Black Lives Matter, the activists, certainly the politicians, they don't care about black lives. You think, Slater, what do you mean? It's their name, Black Lives Matter. No, they don't care. They don't care about black lives. Watch this video. This is in Chicago. This is May of 2019. Your old-fashioned Chicago drive-by shooting. That woman shielded her 1-year-old baby from those 2 thugs who don't care that they shot at a woman and a baby. That happens every day. 20, 30 people are shot every weekend in Chicago. You ever seen that video? Have you ever heard of Brittany Hill? That's the mom who was killed. Never heard of Brittany Hill. But George Floyd is in every other Super Bowl commercial. Got to celebrate murals to him. No mention of Brittany Hill. Now, to say Black Lives Matter doesn't care about Black lives, that's a bold statement. The activists, the leaders in Black Lives Matter. I'll prove it here. We've been talking a lot about rogue DAs, right? So the very quick of it, DAs, district attorneys, they're the prosecutors. They prosecute crimes. So the police arrest people for breaking the law, and then they go through the trial, and the prosecutor, on behalf of the people, the government, decide which cases to prosecute, how harshly to prosecute them, whether to prosecute them at all. The DAs decide that. There's a lot of discretion that the DAs have. They only have so many lawyers, so much time, so much money, so much energy. They can only do so much. So there's limits to what they do. There's trade-offs, I should say. There's trade-offs to what they can do. But George Soros decided to start funding all these super far left, progressive, wacky DAs who were just like, we're not going to prosecute any of these types of crimes. So they would just single-handedly have criminal justice reform just based off of their decision of what laws they want to prosecute and which they don't. They made the choice based off their progressive worldview. And their worldview says that criminals are victims. This is, of all the things we talk about in this show, this is one of the most mind-bending things. It's really hard for people to understand. It was for me. In the progressive worldview, criminals are the victims. And it's so hard for you to get, and me too, because it's like, no, the victims are the victims. The criminals are the criminals, victims are the victims. No, not to progressives. To progressives, the criminals are the victims. So you can't punish the victims. Why would you punish the victims? Now you're being mean, you're being cruel. So literally their worldview says we're not going to punish criminals anymore because they're not criminals, they're the victims. So all these DAs in all the big cities, they release a list of all these crimes that they're not going to prosecute anymore. And one of the crimes that they don't prosecute is gun crimes. The one up in LA in particular, the DA Gascon, he said outright, he is no longer going to tack on extra sentencing for crimes committed with a gun. Right? So if you commit a robbery, that's a crime. If you commit a robbery with a gun, they tack on extra time to your sentence. And Gascon's like, we're not doing that anymore. No more extra time for crimes committed with a gun. And I remember I heard that, I was like, well, that's weird. Wouldn't you think the left, right, these George Soros funded DAs, these progressives who are super anti-gun, wouldn't you think they would definitely add on extra charges to people who commit a crime using a gun? Right? If they're so anti-gun, why are you not prosecuting that way more? Just to exaggerate, just to bring the point home, if someone commits a crime with a gun, they should automatically get life in prison. That would really discourage the use of a gun, wouldn't it? But they don't do that. They do the exact opposite. They got rid of all the charges when it comes to using a gun. Weird. Why? We asked this question last week, and the answer is becoming more clear. It turns out they don't hate all guns. They hate particular types of guns, and not just particular types of guns, but the particular people who use particular types of guns. I'll be specific. They hate rifles, military-grade rifles, weapons of war, they call them, like AR-15s. But almost all the crimes committed in our cities against black people are committed using handguns. But they don't go after handguns. They keep going after AR-15s. But almost no crimes are committed using AR-15s. Almost no lives are taken using AR-15s. That drive-by you just saw, that wasn't done with an AR-15. The vast majority, almost every single life taken, especially in our cities, is done with a handgun. And not only are they not going after handguns anymore, they're not adding on sentences for crimes that are committed using handguns. Why? Because they don't care about black lives. They don't care about that crime. They want your guns. You, lawful person. And what kind of guns do you buy? Rifles. You buy all types of guns, and you should, but mostly rifles or two, right? Criminals commit crimes using handguns, so the left goes after rifles. Chicago, last week, April 6th, week and a half ago, a 21-month-old was shot in the head. The mayor comes out and does this big press conference against AR-15s. Why? The baby was shot with a handgun. The state attorney of Cook County at Chicago, she's in charge of the second largest prosecuting office in the country. Kim Fox is her name. They said that we're dropping all cases for aggravated battery. She's one of those George Soros-funded DAs. We're dropping all cases for aggravated battery with a firearm, unlawful use of a weapon, reckless discharge of a firearm, aggravated discharge of a firearm. Why? These are serious gun charges. They just drop them. Why? Because they don't care about gun crime against black people. They don't care about black lives. They go after you. Before we move on, I got one last point here. I just really want that to sink in. Why are progressive DAs dropping charges on people who commit crimes with guns? And why are they going after guns that people who don't commit crimes use? They want to control you. I'll give you a last example. I'll lend you. Tom Cotton, governor of senator from Arkansas. He made the point the other day in an op-ed that maybe there's not enough people in jail. Right? We're told there's too many people in jail. We have an over-incarceration problem, a school-to-prison pipeline. Right? Kids just get sucked out of the hallways of school and just bloop, 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 like Mario, dropped right into jail. Right? School-to-prison pipeline. And Tom Cotton says, well, maybe there's not enough people in jail. He said there's 20,000 Americans who were murdered last year. That's 4,000 more than the year before. But let's go with 20,000 Americans were murdered last year. Only 12,000 of those were solved. That means 8,000 murderers are on the loose today. 8,000 people are walking around who murdered someone? Where do you think most of those unsolved murders took place? 2019, there were 1.1 million violent crimes in America, and less than half of those resulted in an arrest. 500,000 people who committed a violent crime are on the loose. That means there's millions of victims, real victims, actual victims, who never received justice or closure. I'd argue that the law currently is not properly enforced. There's probably not enough people in jail. But of course, our society, our culture always has it backwards, right? And the argument now is we need to defund the police and take your guns from you. What? And not only that, but lift up people like George Floyd. Celebrate him. And never mention Brittany Hill and her 1-year-old baby. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word.
Just recently, I was sitting at a table much like this one. I was having breakfast with a state senator, and I was sharing my heart and why I felt led to run. And he looked at me and said, I understand you want to make a difference and all, but this is a boys' club, and you need to sit down and wait your turn. That is the problem with politics in Georgia. We have politicians who feel entitled to your vote, entitled to more power, entitled without ever earning your support. It's time for a new generation of conservative leaders to provide hope, to unite, to reinvigorate, and to lead the way for the future of this country. This is not just a campaign to elect Harold Earls. This is a movement. So, Mr. Senator, we're coming. And this time, it won't be just me. It'll be an entire movement behind us.
I like to celebrate good people running for Congress. Harold Earls is with us now, former commander of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Mr. Earls, how are you, brother?
Mike, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Good to talk to you. Before we get to Georgia, by the way, I should say he's running in Congress for Georgia. We got to talk about working at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So, what are you telling yourself? Do you have a mantra that's running through your head? How do you stay focus? I just feel like if you told me to stand still for 10 minutes, I'd end up slouching pretty quick, right? How are you staying focused and still?
Good question. So one, we are tasked to maintain the highest standards and traditions in this nation, and the reason why we do that is out of respect for the unknown. So I can tell you that we very much care about that attention to detail that you're mentioning. For me, I didn't guard the unknowns during the day because I was an officer and we don't wear rank. And so you would know that I was an officer if I was out there because we don't want to outrank the unknown. So I never guarded. I did change the guard. But regardless, we work our very best to bring the respect and honor that they deserve.
I love things like that you don't wear rank because you don't want to outrank the unknown. Like, that's an amazing thing. Give me another like little detail like that people don't notice and would never know, but that is so important.
So when you look at our uniforms, most things on our uniforms are actually handmade. We spend hours and hours making, let's say, a metals rack by hand. Even the back of our badge, we shine and polish. The reason being is that the people in the crowd, they'll never know. But frankly, we don't do it for people in the crowd, right? It's like I got to see daily the best of this country. I got to see amazing people in that crowd, but that's not why we do that. We do that out of respect for those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we have today.
Did you ever want to talk to people in the crowd, either to tell them to pipe down or it's something good, right? Did you ever want to go talk to someone in the crowd?
For sure. I tell you, it's emotional being there. I just have this humble reverence that it's hard to even explain. I'll never forget seeing my first honor flight. An honor flight is where you have World War II or Vietnam veterans. They come in and they wheelchair them all in on a line. And I tell you, Mike, they would stand and salute with all their might, as taps echoed across the hills of Arlington. And for me, having moments like that and seeing that just frankly makes you proud to be an American.
Yeah, did you revel in that moment, or did you literally have to go to a different place in your brain? Because, I would just cry if I see these World War II vets do that. So how do you keep it together?
For sure. I think when you're out there, it's mission at hand and you're focusing on the mission, but there's plenty of moments that, afterwards, whether it's talking to those World War II and Vietnam vets and really hearing their stories, really espouse in me a deeper understanding, I think, than most people realize what this country truly sacrificed, what that generation and previous generations have gone through, and the shoulders that we're standing on to be here today is really what's led me on this journey to run, right? Is seeing those stories, seeing the sacrifice that this country was made on is what's led me now on this journey. Because I tell you, Mike, I saw all those wonderful things. And yet I looked out just 2.5 miles away. I could see the U.S. Capitol, right, from America's most hallowed ground. And I could see, frankly, emblematic elected officials defacing those very values. And so that's really is what has been the driving force behind me getting out of the military and now running for Congress here in Georgia.
Tell us about that old boys club that you spoke of a little bit ago. You got to wait your turn, all that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem in politics, right, is we have these politicians, they don't actually have our best interests in mind. I'll tell you, I have a 3-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, I have a baby on the way. Much of the struggles in life that just the everyday American is going through, we're going through as well. We're figuring out as well. And I think that we have these politicians who can no longer relate to everyday life. They make decisions, but it doesn't relate. And so that's part of the problem. I remember when I sat down with that state senator and with other people, that was a very similar message was, hey, that's great. You want to make a difference, but maybe wait a while. And for me, that's not what we need. We need leaders right now more than ever that are really able to speak truth to what's going on, that are saying, hey, I see you. I see the moment of life we're in, and that's not okay, and I plan on doing something about it.
How old are you?
I'm 28. I'd be 30 at election.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone yesterday about these congressmen who are like 80 years old. And what are we doing? Like, this is insane. Like, it is so clear that we need the next generation to step up here.
That's right. I think that in Georgia particularly, there's so much infighting in Republican politics, right? Just so much. And so it became clear to me that, frankly, we do need a new generation of leaders, right? To show what that future and hope and vision looks like in this state and in this nation.
Now, tell me about, so I think the most important thing about running an election, unfortunately, is name recognition. And I hate that that's true, but that's the way it is. And I hate it. And that's why The Rock is probably going to be our next president, because everyone knows him, and like that's enough, you know. So you're like a super famous YouTube star. Like you got 500,000 YouTube subscribers. I imagine the old people in party politics probably don't know like the importance of that. But those are nationwide, not necessarily in Roswell, Georgia, where you live. How do you translate that? And what does running for office mean in 2021 different than the past?
Fantastic question. So one, that's a shout out to my wife, Rachel. She is an absolute champ. She's actually 34 weeks pregnant right now, but she created that 5-6 years ago. And really, we just saw that on YouTube, there was so much just trash online. And so we wanted to show just what everyday life was like, what a God-centered family tried to be. And so we started just putting videos of our daily life online, and that just grew enormously. And so we've been very grateful for that. And I think with that, really, I think we're really the first YouTubers to run for office. And it presents a totally different dynamic, because for me, someone can come after my character, but I know that I can hold my arms out and say, this is who I am as a person. There's over 1,000 videos of my entire life online. You can see who I am as a dad, as a husband, the type of Christian man that I try to be every day. They can come after my character, but I feel pretty confident that they can watch my entire life and they can judge for themselves the type of man and leader that I am.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what about the argument that, oh, that's just fake, right? You're putting your highlight reel up there, and that's not the real you. Behind the scenes, it's a different Harold Earls.
Yeah, I'll tell you just to go watch the channel. We put it all out there. The raw, the emotional, the happy moments, the sad moments. It really does encompass our entire life.
What's going on with Georgia? Why did Georgia turn blue? What's your assessment politically?
Great question. So this has been my home for a long time. My whole life. I have 8 generations right here in Roswell and Alpharetta. I don't think it's actually a blue state. I think that, yes, you had some stuff that happened with the election, but I think also it became pretty clear to me, you know, you talk about meeting with these state senators and people that kind of rest on their laurels. I think that our party got lazy. I do. I think that we didn't organize in a way that we should have. You know, particularly Republicans in Georgia, there are more Republicans than there are Democrats. But we didn't reach out to our neighbors. We didn't reach out to our communities. We weren't phone banking. We weren't canvassing as we should. And I think that is what has become clear to me, is that the Democrats did a much better job within their party of leveraging every single voter out there, maybe and then some. And the Republicans didn't. We didn't reach out in that same capacity.
Yeah. Who are you running against?
I'm running against Lucy McBath.
What's her story?
She was a flight attendant, and so she actually lost her son to a shooting. And so for me, I think part of that, and she's ran on that story, and I do respect her for running on that, right? For following a cause that she's passionate about. The problem is that, you know, she votes 91% of the time with AOC, 96% of the time with Nancy Pelosi. And I can tell you that, you know, that's my home, that's my family in this district, and we don't agree 96% of the time with Nancy Pelosi. So although it's like I can't imagine what that's like to lose a son, I have 2 boys with another boy on the way. My heart goes out to her in that way, but she doesn't represent our district. She's not making decisions that are actually best for our people.
We need more Harold Earls. How do we support you, brother, no matter where we are in the country?
I appreciate that. I'd be grateful. I realized, you know, so I ended up climbing Mount Everest back in May of 2016. We ended up raising our own funds to do it. And I realized when I was standing on the summit, really, I was standing on the shoulders of so many other people that believed in me, right? And so I realized this is a very similar path, that I will be standing on people's shoulders who are watching me right now on this, right? They say, hey, I believe in this guy. I believe in this change. So you can go to my website, earls.org. That's EARLS.org. And you can see our website, our causes we stand for, but you also can contribute there, and we'd be grateful.
That's what we need. Appreciate that. Harold Earls, we'll talk again. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. All righty.
Thanks, man. I think we'll definitely hear more of Harold Earls, no doubt about that. Talk coming up next about packing the court. President Biden came out and said, he started a commission to explore the option. Are they really going to do it? What would that mean? Talk about that next. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Crusaders. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So President Biden said he did create a commission to explore reforms to the Supreme Court. This is about court packing, adding more people to the court, adding more progressive justices to the court to dilute the Trump vote, the Trump justices on the Supreme Court. Now, former President Trump came out and said, now there's a very good chance they'll be diluted and moved throughout the court system so they can see how the lower courts work. With many new justices added to the court, far more than has been reported, there's also a good chance that they'll be term limited. Our politically correct Supreme Court will get what they deserve, an unconstitutionally elected group of radical left Democrats who are destroying our country. Now, it's not just the former president, it's also Justice Breyer, who is on a progressive worldview. He's on the court. And he gave a speech the other day at Harvard Law School and to alumni. And he said that people need to think long and hard before you pack the court. He said, if the public sees judges as politicians in robes, its confidence in the courts and the rule of law itself can only diminish. Here we are. Judge Paula Patrick is running for state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. We need to support her and make sure she gets on that state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. Judge, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be back. Good to see you.
Thanks for being here. So, pack the court. What's the biggest problem with it in your eyes?
Well, number one, I think the biggest problem is the president is out of line to begin to try to formulate this commission to, quote, investigate if this is going to work. Because it's totally within the authority of our Congress to adjust our courts in any way. And even then, according to our Constitution, it must be necessary and proper. And so I think they're going to have difficulty in justifying that under the Constitution. We know the political motive in doing it, but realistically, according to the Constitution, this must be necessary and proper move. And I don't think they can sustain that at all and simply wanting to add more justice to the court. There's nothing here that warrants it right now in our society.
Yeah, so you alluded that it's up to Congress, and it's been all over the map in history, right? I think it started off at 6 maybe, and it's been up to 12, and it's been 8, and it's been all these different numbers. So why 9? Can't some Democrats come back and justify, oh, no, maybe we need 12 is a better number?
Well, they certainly could come back and try to justify it. But once again, in looking at the power of Congress, only the Congress has that power and authority, not the president, to expand the court. And that power, once again, it must rest in our Constitution, where they have to prove it's necessary and proper to show that 12 justices would be better for the court than 9 and actually give reasoning for it. Your reasoning can't be because we have more of one party than the other party. I think the danger goes also back into what Justice Breyer said as well, is that when we begin to do things like this, it's highly politicizing the court and highly politicizing our benches. And then people will certainly begin to lose faith in our judiciary when they see a judge's Democrat or Republican mark upon them in coming to the court of law. Listen, as judges, we have always been shrouded from that. And that is that even though I don my black robe to take the bench every day, I don't don my robe as a Republican. Even though that's the party that I identify with, I don my robe as a jurist. And so when I go out there to render justice, I must do it by looking at the facts, the evidence, and applying the rule of law to that. And if we begin to get away from that and politicizing our courts, then of course we are in much more trouble in this nation than we can even bargain for.
I know, it's so true. Now, the one reform that seems like I'm open to, or I haven't really thought much about, but I'm willing to think about, is term limits, or something like you have to retire when you're 75 or something like that. What do you think of that idea on the Supreme Court?
Well, of course, I'm in a state where we have term limits on judges. And so in my state, the retirement age for a judge is 75, mandatory retirement. And so I think that it is good. Listen, everyone is not in the best of health at 75. Some people may do great at even 95, but most people do have some level of difficulty. And I believe that it's prudent for us to make sure that we do have some limitations placed upon our judges being on the bench for, forever, if you will. So that could possibly fly.
Okay,
and I think there's also evidence to show medically that it will probably fly as well.
Okay, all right. So I'll keep being open to that. Is there maybe some reform where, I don't know, every president gets 2 justices or something like that moving forward? Anything like that you'd be open to?
Well, I think with President Donald Trump, we're in a unique time, and I say that because the justices that he replaced had been on for a very long time, and it was time for the switch in the court. I do think that it's going to be some time going forward because maybe we'll have Justice Clarence Thomas' seat and maybe a few others that are kind of older. But I think for the most part, it's going to be a while before another president will be able to appoint maybe 3 or more justices at all, whether it's Biden or another Republican coming in after or whoever may be next. So I think that, unfortunately, the Democrats, they don't want to have to deal with the fact that they have this Supreme Court, but I do think they're going to have to deal with it for a while. I don't even think Congress is poised to move on it the way I think the president would like. Again, there are legal parameters that must be met by Congress before this is actually done as well.
Yeah. What's your website, Judge? People can support you to make sure you get on the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania? Yes,
they can go to votepaulapatrick.com. Again, votepaulapatrick.com, and you can like me on Facebook at Judge Paula Patrick.
What was it? JudgePatrick.com?
JudgePaulaPatrick.com. VotePaulaPatrick.com and Facebook at Judge Paula Patrick. Yes.
VotePaulaPatrick.com. Wonderful. Thank you, Judge. Appreciate your insight. Thank you, man.
So
we got to
much.
make sure we got to get a good judge on the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court. You saw what they did with the previous election. That affects all of us across the country. All right, everyone. Have a superb day. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word.